Yo, what is going on, guys? Cultimush back at it with top 5 best PC hardware deals of the week. As always, some great deals this week, but this week I decided to refrain from mentioning any of the higher end video cards, GPUs like the GTX 970, the GTX 980, the 980 Ti, even AMD video cards like the R9 390. I decided to not mention them at all because obviously the 1070 and the 1080 are releasing very soon. I don't think it is a wise idea at all to pick up a 970, 980, or even an R9 390 right now. Wait until Nvidia releases their new video cards and see how that impacts the market. So with that being said, let's get right into the top 5 best PC hardware deals of the week with number 5. Number 5, you can pick up a refurbished OCZ Saber 1240GB SSD for only $45. Now obviously a couple things to note is that yes, it is refurbished. I've had pretty good experiences buying refurbished products from Newegg, but there is always a worry. You do have a 90-day warranty with this, and you can get a 1-year extended replacement plan for only $5. So that really shouldn't be too big of a worry. The OCZ Saber 1000 is not as good as the top tier SSDs from like Samsung or some of the newer SSDs in general, but considering it's a 240GB SSD for only $45, that is an insanely good deal. You're not going to be finding a lot of 240GB SSDs for this cheap of a price that often. So honestly, if you just want a 240GB SSD for a really good price, you don't care about performance all too much, you're willing to buy a refurbished product because chances are you will come out scot-free, this is a really good pickup for a great price. Moving on to number 4, over at NCIX US, you can pick up the Microsoft Xbox One wireless controller along with the wireless adapter. It's a bundle, and that comes out to $60. Yes, that is kind of expensive, but considering the Xbox One controller usually goes for around $50, $60 for the bundle isn't too bad since the controller and the wireless adapter will usually set you back $75 to $80. I've mentioned it several times, but the Xbox One controller is the controller I use for my PC. I also have the wireless adapter, and it gives me a really great console-like experience. Now, yes, why would you want a console-like experience on a PC? There are a lot of games on Steam and other platforms that are really catered towards consoles, and having a controller for those kinds of games is much better than using keyboard and mouse. Games like Dark Souls 3, I would never play that game with a keyboard and mouse. It's much better to play that with a controller, and that's what I did, and I had a great experience. I still get things like the graphical upgrades that the PC provides, but I get the better control scheme that that game was designed for, so I think having a console controller is always nice with a PC. And this bundle for $60, yes, it's still kind of expensive, but comparatively, it's a pretty good deal. Moving on to number 3, we have the CORSAIR RMX 550W 80+ gold certified fully modular power supply. Now this is listed at $90. There's a promo code that will knock off another $10, and there's a $20 mail-in rebate, so if you use all of that, you end up getting this power supply for around $60. And for that price, to get a really high quality 550W power supply is not a bad deal. It is 80+ gold certified, and it is fully modular, so for all of that, you do have to pay a pretty penny. $60 honestly is not too bad for a power supply like this. Yes, can you pick up one of the cheaper CORSAIR power supplies? Of course you can, but if you want a higher quality power supply for a pretty good price, I mean $60, like I said, isn't outrageous for a PSU like this, but if you want a higher quality power supply for still a relatively decent price, this is a really great option. And 550 watts is still enough to power even the higher end video cards. I expect that a 550 watt power supply isn't even going to have too much trouble with something like a GTX 1070. So this power supply from CORSAIR is going to be a pretty good pickup. Like I said, promo code is in the description box down below. Moving on to number 2, also on Newegg, you can pick up G.SKILL Ripjaws X Series 16GB of RAM, 2 8GB sticks. This is running at DDR3 1600MHz, and it's available for only $54, which is a great deal for 16GB of RAM. I mean, a few years ago, you were paying this kind of price, sometimes even more for 8GB of RAM. 16GB of RAM isn't something a lot of people go towards, especially if you're building a budget NPC, but I've been seeing a lot of great deals on 16GB of RAM recently, so if you're on the fence between 8GB and 16GB, honestly, at this point, I would probably recommend just go ahead and get 16GB of RAM, especially if you're gonna be doing things like video editing. It's definitely a nice thing to have. It's not gonna increase your gaming performance in a ridiculous way, but for only $54, having 16GB of RAM in your PC is definitely nice, and for the price that it is currently, it is very, very affordable. Finally, number 1 is the ZOTAC GeForce GTX 750 Ti. This is a 2GB video card, and it is available for only $95. So obviously, this GPU isn't a world beater in any sense. At 1080p, it's not going to be maxing out all the highest end games and getting 60 frames per second. This GPU is catered towards those of you that just want to dabble in some of the higher end games, but for the most part, you're playing games like League of Legends, World of Warcraft, games like that will run perfectly fine on the GTX 750 Ti. Yes, you can play a game like Fallout 4 on this GPU, but you're going to be playing at around medium to high settings at 1080p and getting 35 to 40 frames per second. That kind of frame rate to a lot of people is still very playable, but obviously that is not the ideal PC gaming experience. But that kind of a frame rate is very comparable to a console, and for a $95 GPU, that's very good. And this is a great GPU that you could just throw into a pre-built computer that, say, has an Intel Core i3. It already has 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. You just throw in a video card like this, maybe get a decent power supply, and then boom, you got a passable gaming rig going. But for a $95 GPU, you're getting exactly what you should expect. A GPU that can run the lower end games very well, and it will allow you to dabble in some of the higher end games, but don't expect a lot of the goodies that some of the higher end video cards will offer you. So that's gonna wrap up the top 5 best PC hardware deals of the week. Let me know if you guys pick any of these up. As always, thanks for watching. If you have a request for a future video, leave it in the comments section down below. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. That link will be down below in the description box as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.